Hi, guys, and welcome to another NECP podcast. I am joined by Charlotte. How are we doing, Charlotte?
Hey, good, thank you. Are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you.
Good,
And I
good.
am joined by Mr. Simon Trenholm. How are we doing, Simon?
Really good, really good. It's good to hear you two both well.
And yeah.
Yes.
So, right, guys, once again, we are going to bring you lots of different training tips on training, structuring your week. We're also just going to share our thoughts on what's been happening on the world for whatever that's worth. But the main thing is just getting a bit of a friendly face of fitness. Obviously, giving you lots of good information and making sure that you keep on learning and staying one step ahead of the game before skinny jabs come and get you. That's have you seen the latest ones, guys? Oh,
No.
brilliant!
What gets you?
Brilliant. So there's been this latest fab product that has been released, and it's called skinny jabs.
What on earth is that?
Oh, hang on. Is this what Kerry Katona and Gemma Collins have started going into?
Yeah. So it always starts
I don't
with
know what it is, but I knew it was those two.
Some Z-list celebrity. They take some form of jab, and it just gets rid of. You just lose weight. So as easy as that. As easy as that. But it did make me think, really, like, I think because we become educated, don't we? And well, I like to think we're educated.
Well, we try.
We know the latest science, and we keep up to date with absolutely everything. I think sometimes we take for granted just how well everybody should know by now. It's eat a lot of veggies, be in a calorie deficit, and then all of a sudden you've got this girl that I know who's driving around in this amazing car, and she's selling slimming coffee or skinny coffee and little sachets of stuff to lose weight. And I'm like, people aren't buying that. It's a nice car.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the app.
Yeah.
Do you know? And I think it's incredible, isn't it? This day and age, in a world of information is at your fingertips, but just because you've got information at your fingertips doesn't mean it's good information, does it? And I thought,
absolutely.
I've just got to get the skinny jab up for you guys. Just this is got to send my Google adverts. Like, I'm going to be getting like loads of random stuff now, aren't I? Do you know what I mean? I'm going to be getting loads of stuff.
Skinny. You see, I have such an issue with anything that has branded itself as skinny anything. Do you know, like, I remember having a massive rant because I'd been to the shop and I'd seen some popcorn and it was skinny popcorn. And there's one brand called Skinny Cow, isn't there?
Yeah.
Oh, it's like that word.
But guys, like, it's been seen in the Sun, the Daily Mirror.
I knew you were going to say the Mirror.
The Daily Mail.
Well, there you go.
Now Magazine, New Magazine. Here's the headline: Wonder Jab cuts weight in days.
Oh, well, that's obviously what...
Miracle Flab Jab. There you go. Miracle Flab Jab. There you go. The miracle of a daily diet jab. A drug to help you lose 19 pounds on the NHS in months. Basically, it's appetite suppressant and kills sugar cravings, apparently. You get to see immediate results, apparently. They have affordable payment plans, apparently. It's FDA approved, apparently.
Is there any science underpinning this?
Well, this is what science isn't too high up on the agenda for a lot of these things. So I'm here you go. Diets don't work. Okay? We are all yo-yo dieters, and we cannot stick to diets for months on end.
Yes.
Okay.
And
so there you go.
Oh,
I can book an assessment with one of the nurses over FaceTime. So that's one way we can look at it.
Do you know? I hope I shouldn't call them ambulance chasers, but you know those no win, no fee.
Yeah.
I hope this is the next craze of them. GDPR is obviously going to be sandwiched in between, but I hope so. This is.
What's the pricing on it then?
Right, here you go. Here you go. This is where clever marketing comes in. Everyone is different as it depends on how much each person needs to lose. But our payment plans make it easily affordable. Plus, our packages reduce prices significantly to as little as £250 per month.
Huh?
So there you go.
Oh my goodness. Pay me £250 per month, and I'll suppress your appetite.
Yeah. What they're doing is you're charging you too much, so you can't afford to eat.
Yeah. Wow.
There you go. Who needs science? Who needs nutrition? That's it. Go in.
I actually want to know what's inside these skinny jabs, but yeah. But I think it just goes to show like who they're marketing to. And I think it was quite interesting. I listened to John Berardi, and all of us have been impacted by John in some form or another when it comes to nutrition coaching. I mean, I think you guys will agree, he kind of revolutionized nutrition coaching, and just shifted and just said, listen, it wasn't an information. Everybody wants to lose weight. They know how to lose weight. They just don't lose weight. And he was saying everybody knows how to stop smoking, and they know that they should stop smoking, but they just can't stop smoking. So it was quite interesting listening to him, but obviously that's why he became more of habits-based coaching. And I think that it goes back to it time and time again. They want to bypass the habit. They don't want to highlight somebody's. They'll pull on the heartstrings and just say, "You're fat. You need to lose weight. I'm going to get you a shortcut to go there." I
was going to say it's shortcut to goal, isn't it? But it's also it's a quick fix. It's quick and easy. Give us your £250 a month for 6 months, and yeah.
But also to market that and say we can't yo-yo diet, but this is something else that it's the same thing.
Well, I was going to say, what do you do when you stop having the diet?
What happens when you stop jabbing? Yeah. What happens when you're no longer skinny jabbing?
So basically,
it's got to be a new verb, isn't it? What are you doing? I'm skinny jabbing.
I'm a skinny jabber. I am absolutely intrigued.
I'm not looking. I don't want that appearing on my timeline.
I'm going to delete my history.
It will just. I'm not allowed to swear, am I? So it will boil. Yeah. I'll just.
Do you think, because obviously there's been a recent increase in the vitamin B shots and things, hasn't it?
So well, that's what it is.
It's the kind of it's just a follow-on from that, isn't it? It's just capitalizing on that.
Yeah, pretty much. You know? So basically, it's something that's originally been intended to give to diabetics. Yeah, so it's basically given to diabetics who are probably morbidly obese to try and reduce the weight, which would then try and bring in hormonal balance and stuff like that. And it's really interesting, isn't it? Because what you've got to look at is obviously these interventions cost thousands, but exercise referral intervention costs 95 quid. Yeah. Do you know? But what's quite scary about it, whether it's right or wrong, is people feel like they're in a situation where they can't afford to get it in a private sector. So to get it on the NHS, they make themselves morbidly obese. Do you know? So they'll go to a GP and the GP will say, oh, you're not at this risk, or you're not at that, you're not over a certain amount of weight, or whatever it may be. So then there's actually cases out there where people have consumed more to try and put more weight on, so they can get it on the NHS, which is frightening, isn't it? Really is frightening, you know? But it's kind of like the education that goes out there. Is it an education of just eat an apple a day, go for more walks? Evidently, it doesn't seem to be the case, does it? You know, it needs to be an education on habit-based, and it needs to be an education on you are good enough. Do you know what I mean? Because I think it's quite scary, that, and I think you watch it when people. I watched the thing last night, a documentary, Louis Theroux. It was an old one when he went to Fresno, I think, which the crystal meth capital of the world. Like, people are just cooking crystal meth, and it's got ridiculous amount. But when he was questioning the people, it was like, "Oh, I just love getting high," and obviously typical Louis fashion is like, "So do you have kids and stuff?" And he's asking these questions, and all of a sudden, boom, they just break down, cry, and you can just see they're just masking these things, you know. It's quite scary to think that people are putting their own health at risk just because they can't afford something.
Yeah.
It's interesting to look at the number of people, though, that have been out jogging in lockdown. People that had never jogged before.
Yeah, we were talking about that this morning.
Well, I think that statistic of people is 23% up. People who've never exercised before, it's an increase of 23%.
But when you restrict their access to the outdoors, and you say to people the only reason that you can go outdoors, and I'm not for 1 minute suggesting in some kind of rant that we stop everybody going outdoors unless they're exercising, but that's what it's done. You can go outdoors if you're exercising, and suddenly everybody went outside to exercise. And it's trying to work out a way of getting people to move more. And I mean, the skinny jab promises that quick fix, doesn't it? Habits-based eating isn't going to make you thin overnight. It's going to make you thinner or control your weight for the rest of your life. But it ain't going to make you lose, 4 stone in 6 weeks. Yeah.
So I've just been reading a bit more about what the skinny jab does there, and it's an appetite suppressant. So if we look at one of the side effects of diabetes is obviously your leptin response, in terms of how it interacts with the sugars and stuff. So that's why people end up eating more, because their hormones of that signal doesn't get to the brain, does it, to say, I'm full now. So basically it's like, right, okay, if we can, and it basically what it does, without going in it too much, I'll make sure I do the science ready for next week, but it triggers a hormone straight to the intestine to say that the body's full. So basically you're just stopping people overeating. It's an appetite suppressant, do you know? But again, when human beings, we're hyper complex, like, organisms, aren't we? Do you know what I mean? Like, training is not a simple thing. We keep it as simple as possible, but the way the body interacts and everything is super complex. But as we say, if you fix the physiological side, that doesn't fix the psychological side.
Yeah.
Do you know? And that's the thing. That's the scary thing. If you've got somebody who is somebody who's just not used to not having their comfort food, or why is the food a trigger, or why did they eat in a certain way? If you don't fix that, then you just kind of, it's just backing up excess baggage that
Mm.
could manifest in other ways that you could possibly think, actually, if they're overweight, we could try and tackle that in another format, as well as tackle the mental baggage at the same time.
You're fixing the symptom, aren't you, and not the cause? That's the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and but that's often the case, isn't it? And I think, and that's the thing about habits, is you're looking at the cause of what's, like you say, what's triggering that eating, that what emotional response, and and it's kind of, but because in society, I think we want everything these days. Well, as always, as well, it's playing to people's pain points, isn't it? It's purely marketing to people's pain, and and unfortunately, there's so much pressure on people these days in terms of their image on social media and things, that anything that seems to be, if that's going to get them that quick fix and get them back on social media and feeling good about themselves, and then unfortunately those things, that clever marketing will work, won't it, for quite a lot of people, which is,
I think what gets me from an ethical point of view is the fact that scientists have worked hard to come up with this jab as a solution for people who have obviously got diabetes, and the cost of diabetes in the UK is millions towards billions a year, because it's just a knock-on effect, isn't it? The cost of insulin, the cost of constant checkups, the cost of blood sugar measurements, the cost of everything else, the knock-on effects. Type 2 diabetes generally doesn't just come about it doesn't just generally appear. It's a kind of a long-term chronic ailment that's come about from years of overeating or consumption or excessive erratic eating and stuff like that. So scientists are going out of the way to try and stem this problem, instead the flow of elongating. So we've got type 2 diabetes. How do we stop these problems getting worse? So they find a solution. The media grabs hold of it and goes, oh, well, it'll fit there. Do you know what I mean? It just takes everything out of equilibrium. And it's like, you've probably got some poor scientist there who've been absolutely lambasted, saying, you've created something, and he's probably sat there going, yeah, I was trying to help some diabetic patients. Do you know what I mean? Like, what the hell? Next thing I know, it's on the front of the Daily Fail, and they're saying it's a miracle cure. Do you know? And it's like, whoa, when do we start regulating this stuff? Do you know? I think it's kind of scary that they can take something and fits into a good headline, which again plays onto people's insecurities, isn't it?
How many eating disorders are we storing up, though?
Oh,
and actually just created. How many eating disorders are we creating, and how much disordered eating does it create, or does it take, before somebody actually does so? And like you say, we actually start. It's it's a scary old thing. It really is.
Skinny cells.
That's it. Do you know what I mean?
Skinny cells.
Nothing tastes as good as skinny feels, isn't it?
Yeah. Long term, it's going to take you a good year to really nail this, and it's slow. That's not going to sell, is it?
Yeah.
I've got a 12-month plan for you.
I've got a 52 habit. I've got a 52 habit nutritional program. You can sign some once a week.
We're going to start slow. We're going to do one habit at a time for the next 2 weeks. I want you to eat one extra portion of vegetables. It just doesn't sell, does it?
No, but I think you look at it and you go, right, okay, so we've got to start playing the game a lot better in terms of how we market it, and we're not marketing and we're not selling habit-based or building these habits and stuff as such. It's the support, and I think this time more than ever has highlighted just how much people need support and crave just having someone there to kind of bounce ideas off, to chat, to have meaningful conversations with. And ultimately, that's what you're doing as a coach, or you should be doing as a coach, is having those deep, meaningful conversations that have a deep, meaningful, lasting change. Do you know what I mean? And I think that it goes back to a brilliant marketeer, Seth Godin, and he's kind of like, I can't remember what he says off the top of the head. It's be the change you seek to make, or something along those lines. And it is so powerful, isn't it? You know, and I think actually, if these people are successful in marketing skinny jabs and whatever, slimming coffee and all that kind of crap, then we've just got to get better at marketing and selling sustainable change, you know, and actually helping somebody across the way.
The lifestyle, the thing is, it's, well, I don't know about you, I think we're all about that lifestyle change, aren't we? You know, and I think a lot more people, I think, are buying into that and understand that now. Or maybe that's just because that's what I do and what we do. So maybe we think they do.
Yeah.
We're making a difference.
Yeah. But, and maybe that's, you know, the demographics that I in particular deal with, is that most of the people that come to me are looking for a lifestyle change. It's not just about, it's the whole, it's the nutrition, it's the exercise, and actually it's the mindset as well. So maybe, I think, and I think that a lot of people that I certainly deal with have moved away from that. A lot of people, we've all been through the Slim Fast and the Weight Watchers and the slimming world, and everyone's like, you know, enough. You know, they've had enough of that. So it's interesting to see what market the skinny jab would be going towards, really, because who did you say it was? Gemma Collins?
Yeah, there's a few people there.
Is she the only way is Essex?
I have no idea. I don't know what she's famous for. I just know every time she comes on TV, she might be a great lass off TV, but I know every time she's on TV, I want to pick up a heavy steel toe cap boot and chuck it at the TV.
Oh, is she? She's Towie one, isn't she?
She wears the oxygen. Yeah.
Yeah, I think she's Towie. Oh yes. Oh no, yes, I know who that is. Yeah.
So,
I can see by the look on your face, you know exactly who that is.
Yeah, I think she gets the same response in this household as well, to be fair.
But the thing is obviously she's created a persona and a personality that people can relate to, you know, which is quite frightening. But it just goes to show, if she's turned into a product like this, is this going back to because of the pressure she feels and the story she gets fed via the media and the vitriol online and stuff like that? Because hey, if we say, oh, I can't stand her, you know that there's some absolute balloon out there online who's probably the hardest person in the world behind a keyboard, who is saying some absolute hate, which is probably going to be making her feel absolutely awful. So is that driving it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You look at it that way and you're like, wow, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's it is crazy times, but crazy times. So there you go. That I think that sums up our thoughts on the full thing about skinny jabs and everything else as well. So
skinny anything.
That's it. So moving on from that, before Simon starts to eat his own face, because I can see him twitching over there. He started to develop a tick. But I think I just wanted to sort of touch on, and I think it's going to be really important. We chatted about it last week and a couple of weeks ago about structuring the training and challenges and stuff. I just wanted to go back to that because obviously we had a chat earlier in the week, Charlotte, didn't we, about right, okay, I need to change up my training structure. So I just wanted to revisit the RPE and actually what you should be trying to achieve throughout the week to make sure the structure fits your lifestyle and fits your goals and gives you everything that you need and possibly more.
Yeah, because it's a tough one, isn't it? I think, and for me, I think it's changing as my structure in terms of my weekly structure is changing, and I was a bit concerned that I wasn't going to be getting enough overload, I suppose. As you rightly pointed out, I only need one red day a week. And my goals at the moment are quite different, because we used to be always training for a specific event, which we don't have, which I struggled with, but I've got my head around it now. I just need to be consistent. So for me, I don't need more than one red day a week, and at all, because I've got too many other things going on. And as you know, if I'm putting 100% into my work, 100% into my training, 100% into nutrition, it's all going to fall apart. And I've been trying to be a bit more reasonable with myself about what I'm doing. So I'm still in the throes of probably trying to get that structure, but for me as well, it's about making sure that, as we've spoken about before, not having too many yellow days, where I'm just at that kind of threshold all the time. But I know now that on a Sunday I have a really good day of recovery. I have a nice long green sort of 50-minute or so run, which is great, and that sets me up nicely for then Monday, which is my bells day, which always try and fit that in a group training session. And so I've got my head around it a lot more now, and a lot better. And I know it works, doesn't it, when you structure it in that way. I don't have any days that I don't do anything. I train every single day, but that training is also my recovery on a Sunday. So I don't see it as training. It doesn't feel like a training day.
So I think what you've got to look at, and I think when you start using RPE, and it's something that I really do recommend a lot of people to use, the science behind it always backs it up. There's flaws in it, but there's flaws in every single training system. But it's basically you're building an intuitive body. But I think the main thing that you've got to try and remember from using an RPE system is not trying to crowbar an overload day in a specific day. Do you know what I mean? Right. This is a mistake I've made. I've kind of went, right, okay, Monday will be a red day, then it'll be a green day, and then a yellow day, and then a yellow day, and then a red day, and then a green day, and but that's trying to predict how your body's going to react. So I think it's what you've got to look at sometimes is look at it and go, right, okay, I've got the training sessions, I've got the training I know my weekly plan. And then you've got to sometimes use that bit of biofeedback that you're building up and that intuition to go, right, do you know what? This was meant to be a red day, but I'm going to switch that red day around, whether you're using HRV as your metric or just subjective. But what you've got to be mindful of, and what you've got to remember is the way a coach should have your training structured. It's always got to be a sequence. So although Monday might be a heavy day, you still do those sets. You just possibly don't go to a rep range. You don't go to a heart rate zone. You don't go to an intensity that would stress the central nervous system and create an overload. You still do the sets, because when a coach notes down the training, it generally has a knock-on effect. It's generally, the way I look at it when I plan it is, okay, that session's there because that's going to serve as a potentiator. So what I mean by that is that's a primer for that. And the way the body's going to react after doing that session will then suit the endocrine system or the endocrine system perfectly for when it hits this session. Do you know? Now, that's obviously not an exact science, but I think so at this moment in time, when you're trying to figure out how should I structure my week and what should I do, it's kind of like, right, okay, I've got my plan there. I know what I need to do, but I know that I only need to have one overload session a week. It might be today, it might be Friday, it might be Wednesday, whatever it may be. but it's kind of making sure you get your overload in a session that will, one, allow the overload, but two, you don't try and crowbar it in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because your central nervous system doesn't react in a linear fashion. You know, it's constantly undulating all the time. But sometimes you might have, like, high volume session doesn't need to be an overload. Like, that doesn't need to be a red day as such, because we could say, 10 minutes. 10 minutes is a long time under the bells, which it is. But if your PB, Charlotte, is what, 120, 130 on jerk?
Yeah, 130.
But
Yeah.
if you went at the pace 9, that's probably not going to be an overload. It's still going to be tough to get the sets in.
Yeah.
You've still got the effects of what happens to the body from that. You just haven't elicited enough of a stress to get the overall stimulus on your central nervous system, but you're still getting what the coach is trying to develop through a 10-minute set.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So
yeah, definitely.
when you're doing your sets, you go, right, okay, well, that's aiming at 12 reps a minute, and this is why it's really important to understand your training, because you might go in the gym and say, right, it's 5 sets of 10 on squats, whatever it may be. Well, there's a difference between it being 85, 95% max to 60%, you know? But if you're not feeling it, all your weight is shifted. You know, if your central nervous system battered, your 95% ain't going to be up here. It's going to be down here somewhere. But you can still get that training session effect. You're just not creating the stimulus to a change to make that change. But as long as as long as you're getting that overload into a session at some point in the week, that's going to be fine. Makes sense. Silence. Tumbleweeds. You know, does that make sense though? Does that make sense on how you'd structure a week? So I think for guys,
as you say, it's moving away. It's kind of not having too many almost meh yellow days.
I'm going to watch the last 4 minutes on playback because I've just frozen.
And see, I thought she was listening intently, Si. I thought she was like, she's listening to this, she's digging this, she's absorbing it.
I thought she was just focusing on holding her head still so we couldn't tell that she was making notes. No, she's frozen.
Yeah,
Red timer.
This is what you get when you got 5 people in the house on Wi-Fi.
That's it. They're all creating their individual TikTok videos.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
But for you guys out there who might be looking at it and go, Steve, what on earth are you talking about? All I care about is going to the gym, tackling me bingo wings, and making sure I give myself a backside lift, and I can stay away from the abuse of a melted wheelie bin or a melted candle, then I don't really care. But I think what you've got to realize now, guys, is again, hopefully you can see that we're trying to get you to be more intuitive to your training, and ultimately that's what you should be striving for. But when you go back to work, there's got to be times when you can push and there's got to be times that you can't, you know. But I think what a lot of people make the mistake of is when they've got it in them to push, they don't push. They don't create a large enough stimulus. They don't create enough overload to really make the change. The body is super resilient, doesn't like change. It needs to be a big old kick up the ass to force it to change. And it's about getting out your comfort zone and doing that. But once you build that intuitiveness into it, you start to understand, okay, when can I move this weight quicker? Do you know, sometimes that's all it takes.
Yeah.
Do you know, move this weight quicker, a larger range of movement, whatever it may be. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes that's the only overload that you need to apply to it. instead of taking 45 seconds rest, you take 30 seconds rest intensity. Do you know?
I think as well, because the RPE, quite a few people I'm working with now, they do use it, and a couple have got really in tune with it. Danielle's really good at that, and it's with that, I think initially you've got to be careful that you don't fake out a little bit, and that you that you are being real about the actual RPE and where you're at in terms of the effort level that you're putting in and the intensity, because it can be quite easy to go, oh no, that was a rest, and it actually wasn't. You know, and I think I would feel, you know, different intensities. And
frozen a bit there.
She's gone again.
She's gone again.
Oh, she's gone.
She's back. She's back. She's back.
Do you know what? We've gone 12 weeks doing these, or however long it is, and I've never had this much issue with it.
You've never had this many people in the house, so that's the thing.
It's true. Yeah, at the same time.
But anyway, what you were saying there, Shah, was completely right. I think just because you're a bit of a sweaty mess at the end of a session and you found it kind of challenging doesn't necessarily make that a 10.
Yeah.
Do you know? I think it's that ability to reflect and go, could I have put more weight on the bar? Could I have done more sets and reps? Could I have gone quicker? Whatever it may be. And then once you've done that, then you can make an informed decision, you know? So, I mean, because obviously, Sai, you use RPE and stuff like that. Do you know what's been the challenges you've had with it in terms of your reporting and stuff?
I think, like Charlotte says, making sure that a 10 is a 10. But I mean, just very recently, I've been, you know, I mean, I've always done, I've always done, as long as I've had a Morpheus band, I've done my HRV on the morning. This kind of last week, it's fallen that I've had harder sets to do when my HRV was on the way up. And as we said the other day, you know, that on Thursday, and should it have been a sort of, it shouldn't have felt like an RP of 27, which it did.
Yeah.
You know, I came out of the garage thinking, you know, this is going to take 3 or 4 days to recover from. Now, I've done 2 10-minute sets the weekend before, you know, on consecutive days, 10 minutes with a both long cycle, 10 minutes with the 24s, and then followed it up with a real quick 10 minutes with the 20s, and it didn't affect mine. But my HRV, my recovery was there. So, you know, sometimes you can get a bit of a surprise if you feel, because I mean, I felt jaded. I knew it was going to be a tough set. And again, that comes down to that sort of intuition, doesn't it? But also, I think you can look at a set sometimes and go, this is going to be desperately hard. I'm not going to push because you're worried about kind of not doing the reps, not doing the sets, not getting through the sets as you want to. And then you can almost talk yourself out quite easily of making it a red day because you don't push hard enough, because you go too far the other way. If I push hard enough, I'm not going to do all of my sets and reps. You know, I'm not going to get through them, and therefore it's not going to be a red day. But then, because that's kind of almost self-preservation, but it's that kind of, I've got to make sure that I do it all so that it's a red day, but then you don't do it at the intensity, so it doesn't become a red, and it becomes a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy that, you know, you don't get that crawling out of the gym on your hands and knees feet.
Yeah. And I think
that you should always be crawling out of the gym
not
on
at
your hands
all.
and knees, but you know what I mean. It that kind of, you know, when you know that feeling when we've said it, you come out of the gym on a Saturday afternoon and you sit down on the sofa and 35, 40 seconds later and you're inspecting your eyelids photos.
Yeah, definitely. But I think what's interesting is the different types of fatigue and overload that can occur.
Mm.
I think you look at it and just go, right, well, if we went for a 90-minute run, that would be enough to cause an overload. Do you know what I mean? That would cause a lot of overload on the body.
Yeah, but it's not the same as doing a 90%, 95% deadlift session in terms of the abuse that it's going to cause on your CNS.
And that's what I was kind of getting at, was you've got to look at what type of change you're looking to make. Do you know what I mean? So got two Charlottes on screen now. But it's looking at...
Sorry, I'm just this one to be clear.
It's all good. It's all good. But it's looking at, right, what type of...
There we go. See if that works now.
what gains are you trying to make? Do you know what I mean? And ultimately, if you are looking as a strength athlete, you're looking at a power athlete, then you need to manipulate the central nervous system to get that adaptation, because ultimately that type of training is CNS kind of driven, as such, more susceptible to being driven by that anyway. But it's very easy to cause muscular fatigue and drain your body on more of a circuity type 45 seconds work, 15 seconds rest kind of way, and feel absolutely battered, but it's nowhere near as having the overload that you think it's having. So I think, to wrap this up without people getting annoyed with me just rambling on about central nervous system and training, it's kind of looking at, guys, what you've got to look at is you've got to look at what's your goal, what you're trying to achieve. You obviously sit down with your coach and discuss that, but know that at least once a week, you've got to create a huge stimulus to change. Do you know what I mean? You've got to really push yourself in a way that is going to force you to actually adapt and change. And there's different schools of thoughts on that, but I'm a big believer on at least once a week, you really need to drive enough of an adaptation to really make a big difference. And this isn't the type of adaptation where that's it, it's a 1 rep max and you're goosed for next week. It's about giving yourself enough exposure at a high intensity, which is going to force your body to adapt without it just being consistently in a battered state. So that's all I've got to say about that.
For now.
Yeah, exactly. So this next part of the show, I wanted to sort of just dip into the latest nutrition stuff, because I think it's quite important. There's always stuff coming out and stuff like that, so I just kind of wanted to touch base on what kind of news have you guys heard out there on the latest nutrition, whether that be protocols or science that's been out there.
Skinny job, isn't it?
Skinny.
No, you got to make Simon's tick come back.
I'm going to tell you, my computer's on 5%, and I'm going to have to either go and get. I'm off ski.
Skinny job all the way.
Yeah.
So
well, I was going to say, you were saying that you'd just read the article from the International Society of Sports Nutrition.
Yeah, rolls off the tongue that, mate, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's brilliant, isn't it? Yeah.
Isn't. It just isn't. Just say isn't. Yeah, I think those guys do some really good stuff on their position stands, and obviously it's constantly updated and everything else like that. One of the most recent ones that the studies that I've been reading about, which was highlighted from another podcast, the guys over at Stronger by Science, and it was about intermittent fasting. And the reason why it grabbed my attention is because one of my 19-year-old athletes came to me and said, I want to try intermittent fasting, which proceeded with me slapping my own face, putting my head in my hands and thinking, oh my goodness, what on earth? But what was quite interesting was a lot of the studies that come out about intermittent fasting just look at restricting the calorie intake, calorie window, and look at lean mass and burning body fat and everything else like that. But one of the latest ones was looking at, they actually looked at protein intake, and the guys who actually made some improvements through using intermittent fasting, their protein intake was high, you know. But I think what that highlighted was the importance of protein, you know. And it's like, no matter what style of eating that you're doing or what protocol you're using or whatever it may be, the importance of aiming for around about 2 grams of protein per kilo body weight is key to a lot of success, you know. But be interesting to hear your guys' thoughts on that.
So was that study, because I haven't seen that one yet, was that study more to do with what you're saying then, is that because they were restricting the window, they were more focused on getting those protein requirements in? Or is that why, is that what the study was saying? Sorry,
yes,
freezing up again. Sorry.
So what it was looking at was the effects of intermittent fasting on kind of lean mass, and can you make gains on intermittent fasting, because there's obviously a lot of stuff out there that says intermittent fasting is great, it'll get you shredded and it'll make a big difference, and cellular hypertrophy and atrophy and all that kind of stuff, and regeneration, and makes you look younger and all that kind of stuff is out there. But obviously it's something that's still relatively new in the field of study. But what highlighted on this recent one is he actually tracked their protein intake, and guys who were doing intermittent fasting still made big gains. But I think what it highlighted was just the importance of getting that requirement of protein in the upper echelons for lean muscle mass specifically, and strength, you know.
Right, yeah. I think as well, because it's also, you know, the older that you get as well, it makes a big difference, isn't it, as well, in terms of the protein intake. And there's so much information out there about the ranges, isn't there, in terms of what people should be hitting. But the more you read them, it is more the upper levels, isn't it, of sort of 1.8 and upwards per gram, you know, per kilo, per kilo of body weight. I was having this conversation with my mum the other day, actually, because she started doing a lot more. She's sort of 65, and she started doing a lot more. And she said, she'd been reading some research about the subject, and she was saying, oh, well, I'm hitting about a gram or 1.2 to 1.5, and I was like, actually, you know, for your age, really, you need to be looking for like 2. And she was like, wow, you know, but there is, you know, it is supported now. Pardon?
I said the kind of minimum stance is 0.8.
For sedentary.
ISN, but then the ISN or the ISSN sort of, their old stance was anywhere between 1.6 and 2.4 grams, and I think they define high protein as 3 grams per kilo of body weight, which, you know, it's a hell of a chunk. But I think whether you're intermittent fasting or not, sometimes the difficulty comes if you wanted to gain lean mass, you've got to be in a calorie surplus. You know, and it's making sure that you're eating enough calories, but again, not just going, right, okay, I can have 2 12-inch pizzas in 4 hours, and that's my nutrition sorted for the day, and I'm still going to make great gains. You've still got to eat decent, clean. You've still got to be eating the good stuff.
Yeah.
I think with intermittent fasting as well, I think it's you more focused. on that window when you're eating, doesn't it? Because you're restricted, you have to, it forces you almost to have to create bits in terms of the nutrition, in terms of, you know, making sure you get the adequate complex carbs in conjunction with the protein, because you know, and it's that window is sort of, you know, for it's about 8, you know, the 8-hour window is more than 10 hours for females generally. But yeah, I mean, I find that it just made me a little bit more focused in terms of what I was eating as well, which could explain. But yeah,
it goes back to the, you know, the diets that work are the diets that you can stick to, or the eating protocols that work are the eating protocols that you can stick to.
That's it.
But it's also, it is very, very interesting, you know, to look at the different protocols and actually go, well, you know, if somebody's coming to me and saying, I do want to do intermittent fasting, look at your lifestyle, and is your lifestyle going to support that? Because if you haven't got the adherence to it, it's easier to do it if you're in a study for 28 days where you've got an end point. You know, but it goes back to that kind of habitual stuff as well, doesn't it? Is this going to be sustainable for a long period? But the other side of the coin, when you can use something like this for cutting for a comp, you know, and kind of modify it and think about maintenance of weight, and you know, it's good to be aware of all of the protocols, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think the interesting thing for me is the athlete who asked me the question about it is the reason why I didn't. I tried to steer her away from it, and she luckily she took my advice. Was one, she's massively impacted by her cycle. So in terms of she gets really, really fatigued, really tired, really emotional, beats herself up massively just because of the cycle has such a big impact on her. So that's one reason which I thought there are days where she undereats and she underreports and everything else as well. And when you shorten down that window, if you don't feel like eating, you could have a massive serious impact on total calorie intake that you have. You know, so that was one of the reasons I steered her away from it, because I knew that it would have a big impact on her. Also, is she's getting good results as it is. It's about being patient and just sometimes sticking with it. We've all been in those plateau stages, and you're just like, oh God, you know, I want to push on. I want to see the results a little bit faster and everything else like that. And sometimes it's just about being persistent and patient with it. So there's no point making wholesale changes if you're currently getting results as it is, you know, just because they're not coming as quick as what you want. Because the chances are, you know, you've probably seen it more than anyone, say, on the other end of a plateau becomes massive changes, you know, and it's really annoying how that works. Really, really annoying how that bloody thing works, you know, because you're like waiting for change. Oh man, this is terrible. I hate this. Oh, this is rubbish. And all of a sudden it's like, whoa, where did that come from? PBs left, right, and center, or you wake up the next day and you're like, wow, I'm looking great. You jump on the scales, body fat taken. You're like, oh, what the hell? I've been struggling my ass off for the past 2-3 weeks. What's been going on? Do you know? And then all of a sudden the body just goes, oh, I'm ready to go again. And you're just like, oh, right, okay. Do you know? But it's really interesting. I think ultimately, just to wrap this bit up, is finding the protocol, like you say, Si, that fits your lifestyle. But it's also got to be one that you can adhere to, and not underreport, because a lot of people underreport, and intermittent fasting doesn't allow the flexibility for you to underreport, because the window's a lot shorter. Do you know, if you take 4 hours out of a day, do you know, and you underreport how much you eat, and you're trying to, then all of a sudden, instead of being in a calorie deficit of 300 to 250, suddenly you're in a calorie deficit of 700, and it's 9 o'clock at night and you can't be asked to eat. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, it's not the protocol for you. You know, so cool beans, right, guys? So that sort of wraps up the nutrition start of it. So basically, any other business, guys? What else has been happening this week? How's everything else going? Si, you might as well take this because Charlotte's
I
just
don't
on
speak.
it.
I'm going to get in touch with Talk my wife back.
I think it's
Gone.
1 week's kind of leading into the next, isn't it? But I think when we were talking earlier, we've all got stuff that we're trying to change, kind of maybe not wholesale changes in our whole coaching model, but just changing the offerings that we've got, and obviously all working hard on that. So, from the Charlotte doing a lot more online and getting back out into the group training world to me trying to create a paid area for my site and all sorts. So
yeah. It's been. I've had a good week. I mean, it's been nice to actually. I know you've been doing it for a little while, so but seeing people face to face. It's just a shame that the day I decided to, that I planned it in, the heavens opened.
Yeah.
Thursday and Friday. It's like there were 3 months of sunshine and then planning outdoor sessions and it rains. But it was really good to get that feedback. You kind of, you miss it, don't you? And then you actually you get it in person. You're like, no, I really missed it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been really positive. But like you say,
makes such a huge difference when you.
Yeah.
Just makes such a huge difference when you see the whole person, and I mean, not just from toenails to hair, but actually you see the whole person. You can see how they're responding. You just get a much better feeling for it, don't you? And it just goes back to that kind of, coaching being, a lot more holistic than just, you turn up. I've written this program. This is what you're going to do. You are going to do 4 sets of 17 and a half, whether it's right for you on the day. And just being face to face just gives you a lot more flexibility in it.
I think it's been nice for my group. My groups are kind of all seeing each other's faces for the first time as well, which is obviously smaller groups, but that's been really good to see because we've all been staying in touch on WhatsApp and on Facebook within the group. We've had some great laughs and banter, but just seeing them together again was just good as well. Even in the rain, so that was it's been a really good week for that. Really good. And it's just like you say, just planning and moving forward now into the next phase, whatever that may look like.
I think last week we were chatting about stuck in no man's land and thinking, oh man, are we able to do this? Are we able to do that? I think now that's been sort of changed with a bit of excitement, whether that's just me just changing my outlook on it, but that bit of excitement of just seeing, the light is at the end of the tunnel. We're able to start doing stuff, and although that's presenting new challenges and new headaches, it's actually an opportunity to create solutions that I'm actually looking forward to challenging and solving. So obviously refurbing the gym this week and stuff like that, that's exciting. So it's really good to get involved with that and stuff. So seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, it's just a nice feeling to have.
It is. I think as well for me, because as you know, I had a real dip the week before, a real dip, and this week has been. I'm not on a roller coaster, but I've definitely kind of leveled out this week, so that's been good. And it's I think a lot of people though, and the more people I speak to about that, a lot of people have felt that. I think because it's that sort of 12 weeks in, and then the reality the kids definitely aren't going back to school, and lots of things kind of clicked in. So I certainly wasn't alone in that, and obviously they kind of, all the stuff that's going on in the world at the moment as well. So it's kind of felt like a nice level week, and like things are moving forward, aren't they? And kind of reflecting and thinking, you know what, actually there's, I've learned a lot over the last few weeks, and you kind of forget that, don't you, when you're starting to come out of it, you're like, yeah, it's kind of, I've done this and I've done that, and speaking to people as well now, and a lot of my clients, yeah, do you know what, actually I've done this and I've done that, and one of my clients, Danielle, this is my 99th session.
Awesome.
I know, I was like, and so I've just really embarrassed her and put it all over Facebook and Instagram. But I was just
she'll love that.
Yeah, I was just so impressed, 99 sessions she's done in lockdown.
Yeah.
And that's, and she could have quite easily just gone, my business is closed, I'm just going to do nothing. And she hasn't. And she's gone from training 3 or 4 times a week to training 6 days a week.
That's amazing.
It's brilliant. I just love it. And it's just, so it's been so good to get all that back.
Yeah.
To hear people and their successes.
That's it. And I think it sort of reiterates why we do coaching in the first place. I love it. I love online coaching. I've got clients up and down all over the country, kind of thing. But it's just something special about making a positive impact on someone's day, and getting some energy from them, and seeing their breakthrough, and seeing their smile. That isn't done through a HD camcorder or through a phone, and just getting the energy is it's really nice to have, really, really nice to have, and I think Si will probably back me up on this one, but really looking forward to the first session back we can do with the kids. We don't know what that's going to look like, but I had my first athletics coaching session down at the track this week.
Oh yeah,
and those kids, just seeing them back and stuff like that was just fantastic, and those guys bring a lot of energy as it is anyway, sometimes too much energy. But it just makes you feel like, this is why I spend hours on a laptop studying, reading research papers, and doing everything that comes with coaching, and ultimately sometimes when you go face to face, it makes it all worthwhile, doesn't it?
Certainly does. More to it.
Good stuff. Right, I'm going to quickly find a quote. What's the best way that we can finish on that one? I don't know. I'm not going to ask Charlotte for a quote, because it'll sound like it comes from R2-D2 or something. Do you know what I mean?
I'm so sorry about this. Get through this entire time, and then the last couple of weeks, it's just this blooming technology.
Can we just go just eat real food?
I think here we go. We're finishing on coaching, aren't we? These are a good one. Timothy Galway. Coaching is unlocking a person's potential to maximize their own performance. It's helping them to learn rather than teaching them.
Good stuff.
Pretty cool, that.
Nice.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Right, guys. So that has been another glitchy episode of the Novice Performance Community one. Hopefully you enjoyed that. If you've got any questions, please drop them in the comment section below. And we look forward to seeing you guys again on next week's episode. Take it easy, guys.
Cheers, guys.